Welcome to the solutions video for IXL grade 11 M.2 evaluating rational expressions 1. So here we want to evaluate the expression for r equals 3 when you have a negative r minus 3 over a negative r plus 5. So that's a negative r minus 3. If we can get this to stop zooming. So minus 3 over a negative r plus 5. We've been asked to do this when r equals 3. So we substitute in brackets, always doing it in brackets, so that positive and negative signs are preserved as they should be. Our numerator becomes a negative 6, our denominator becomes a positive 2. The entire expression is negative 3. Now we've got a negative v plus 5 over negative v plus 4 for v equals 6. So negative v plus 5 over negative v plus 4. We want that when v equals 6. So again, we substitute the 6 in brackets. And we get a negative 1 over a negative 2. Or 1/2. Now we want to evaluate for s is negative 1 when we have a negative s plus 4 over 8s. So negative s plus 4 over positive 8s. For s is negative 1. Negative of negative 1 is 5, and 8 times a negative 1 is negative 8. So this is negative 5/8. We have a q plus, or q equals 1 for 6q over negative q plus 5. So 6q over negative q plus 5, evaluated, I believe it was q equals 1, yes. That's 6 times 1 over negative 1 plus 5 is 6 over 4, or 3/2 as an improper fraction. Now we have 7p minus 6 over p cubed, again for p equals 1. So we could probably do with mental math, but we will write it out just to reinforce the steps. So it's 7p minus 6 over p cubed for p equals 1. So that's 7 times 1 minus 6 over 1 cubed. 7 minus 6 over 1 is 1 over 1, which is 1. Now for p equals 1, we have a negative 8p plus 5 over p minus 10. Negative 8p plus 5, I believe it was, over p minus 10. This is going to be for p equals 1. So negative 8 plus 5 over a negative 9. Negative 3 over negative 9, which reduces to 1/3. Now we have a negative a plus 8 over 2a, and we want it for a equals 5. Negative a plus 8 over 2a. When a equals 5, again, we substitute it in brackets. And that makes 3 over 10, which does not reduce. So now we want 8, and then in brackets a negative d plus 8 over d minus 7. So we have 8 negative d plus 8 over d minus 7. And we want that for d equals 9. So we're going to have some nested brackets here. So I tried to draw them in different sizes so it's always clear which are inside and which are outside. So we have 8 times a negative 1 over 2. So a negative 8 over 2 is a negative 4. So notice now we have two variables that we need to substitute for. We'll start by recopying our expression, 2v minus 9 over w cubed. We want this for v equals 3 and for w equals negative 2. So that's 6 minus 9 over negative 8. So a negative 3 over negative 8, or positive 3/8, because a negative over a negative is a positive. Now we have another one with variables for x and y. So we have a 2xy over 5y minus 8. We want that for x equals negative 5 and y equals 1. So 2 times negative 5 is negative 10 times 1 is still negative 10, and a 5 minus 8 is a negative 3, so that's 10/3. So now 7q over q minus p. You want to mind your p's and q's. 7q over q minus p. We want this for q equals 1. And p equals negative 9. That's 7 over 10. Now, 2t squared over negative u minus 10. And t is 1, u is negative 9. So that's a 2 over 9 minus 10, that's a negative 1. So this entire expression reduces to negative 2. Now c minus 8 over 8d. For c and d both equal to negative 1. That makes a negative 9 over a negative 8, or 9/8. So now we want to evaluate this for s minus r over 8r cubed. S minus r over 8r cubed, where r is negative 1 and s is negative 8. So r is negative 1 and s is negative 8. So negative 8 plus 1 is a negative 7 over negative 8. So we have 7/8. Now, we have a b minus 6 over a minus 5. And a is negative 4 and b is 4. A was negative 4, yes. So the numerator is a negative 2, the denominator is a negative 9, so that is 2 over 9. Now, d minus c over c minus d. This is one where we actually don't care what the substitutions are. D minus c over c minus d is a negative c minus d over c minus d is a negative 1 anytime c does not equal d. If c equals d, we're dividing by 0 and it's undefined. Otherwise, it is negative 1 no matter what the substitution values are. Now, 8 times a negative r plus 10 over s minus r. So we have 8 times a negative r plus 10 over s minus r. That's for r equals 9. Again, different size brackets, so the inside and outside are always clear. And our s is 2. So this is 8 times 1 over a negative 7. So that's a negative 8/7. So now we have 5 times a negative 5 minus 7 over x minus 9. So that's 5, negative 5w minus 7. I think I forgot to say w the first time. Over x minus 9, where x is 6 and w is negative 1. Just double check. Yes. So that is 5, and then that's a 5 minus 7 is a negative 2 in there, over a negative 3. That's a negative 10 over a negative 3, or 10/3. So now we have t minus 9 over t cubed, or negative t cubed, plus 9u squared. So our numerator again, negative t plus 9, and our denominator is negative t cubed plus 9u squared. We want to evaluate this for t equals 1. And our u is negative 1. So a negative 1 plus 9 is 8 in the numerator. Our denominator 1 cubed is always 1. So we just have a negative 1 here. Now a negative 1 to any even exponent becomes a positive 1. So this is also a negative 1 plus 9. So this is also 8. So this whole thing simplifies to 1. Here we are, challenge zone. 3 variables this time. Negative c plus b squared d cubed. So negative c plus b squared d cubed over negative d plus c. And we want this for c equals 7. For b equals 1. And for d equals 1. So a negative 7 plus 1 is a negative 6, and a negative 1 plus 7 is a positive 6. So that's negative 1. So now we have a negative q plus 8. Over a negative 6p squared plus r. And we want a value of q of 7. A p is -1. And r is 3. So that's 1 over a -6 plus 3 is a -3. So we have -1/3 as our simplified version. All right, now we're getting into 4 variables. So we have a -y minus v squared wx but that entire numerator is squared over a -x plus 3. We want this for y equals -6. Okay, sorry about that interruption, that was paused. Now let me regain my train of thought. All right, so we had a y of -6. Now we have a v of -1. We're substituting where w is 2 and where x is 4. So our denominator simplifies readily to -1. In our numerator, we have 6 minus 8, and that is squared. So that's a -2 squared over -1, which is a +4 over a -1. So our entire expression simplifies to -4. Now here we have v cubed x cubed over w minus u. V cubed x cubed over w minus u. So we have a v of 1. X is -1. W is -2. And u is -7. So that's a -1 over a -2 plus 7, which is 5. So we have a -1/5. All right. Now our next one. We had 5 times a -q minus t over an r minus 2s cubed, and that whole thing is squared. Now for our substitutions, our q is a -6 and our t is 4. R is 5. And S is 1. So our numerator is 5 times a +6 minus 4, which is 2, all over 5 minus 2 squared. So that is a 10 over 3 squared, or a 10 over 9. All right, so that finishes the solutions for 11M.2.